2021, and I'm still in Des Moines, Iowa, where it's going to be about 97 degrees today with a heat index of 107. So if you like to work out and sweat, then come on out to the great state of Iowa, and you will do that. In fact, yesterday went for a walk and a hike in the woods. Hello to Tina Kirkpatrick on Facebook and soon to be on YouTube. But I went for a hike yesterday and a walk with Lily, and we went to Brown's Woods, and it was very humid, and get this, they had mosquitoes, and it was like, I don't know, 4:30 in the afternoon. So hiked for about almost 4 miles, and sweating like a lot, and mosquitoes flying around, buzzing around my ears. And whenever you get and hear mosquitoes going bzzz in your ears, what does it cause you to do? Normally you take your hand and you try to swat at them. So you can imagine, here I am in this woods, walking as fast as I can and swatting like almost constantly for almost 4 miles. So it was about an hour, a little over an hour. Yeah, probably a little over an hour of doing that. So anyway, that's what you get when you come to the Midwest. You know, those of us that have grown up here, and of course it's also in the South. But it's interesting because you go the western half of the United States and they don't really have humidity. And it's amazing when you come out of that into those states that are humid and how that affects you. So drank a lot of water and ate at Jason's Deli actually last night. Had some soup and a wrap. So, and then I had some Menchie's for dessert, frozen yogurt. Yummy, yummy. All right, so Breakthrough Tour 2021. Again, this coming Saturday night, 7 p.m. We'll be in Fort Atkinson, Iowa. That's in northeastern Iowa at a ministry called In One Accord. Again, you can see all the details on my website, restoredtofreedom.com, or you can go to Restored to Freedom on Facebook, and you'll be able to see the schedule there. August the 1st, coming to Decorah, Iowa, at the Christian Life Center Church. And August the 7th in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the Minneapolis Marriott West. August 21st, coming to Chicago at the Chicago Marriott Naperville. We've had it twice before there, and we've had the greatest turnouts ever in that hotel. So it is shaping up again to have a great turnout. So come on out if you're in the Chicago land area on August the 21st. And then September 25th in Greenville, South Carolina, Faith Family Church. And then I should know the dates, hopefully by the end of today, for Florida. Coming to Kingdom Life Church in Holiday, Florida, and also DTM Church in Newport Richey. But I'll know the exact dates, I'm hoping, by the end of today. I'll let you know on that. And then October 31st, Houston, Texas, coming to Cool Church. I've been there at least twice before, maybe 3 times. And then November 5th and 6th in Waco, Texas. And I'll let you know the venue there. And I'll get some more things scheduled, of course, throughout October, November, and December. So, alrighty, topic of the day. It's kind of one thing that's near and dear to my heart. It's called How Much Time Do You Waste Striving? And it's because the guy that had mentored me for a couple of years was very much a strong proponent of not striving. You know, a lot of times people think of striving as arguing, and yes, that is true. Striving is arguing. But it's much more than that. You know, at a very general thing, it's essentially anything that would cause you to lose your peace. So if you are striving, that means it can be complaining. You know, think about the Israelites. Think about most people today. They oftentimes complain about their spouse or ex-spouse, complain about their mom or dad, complain about their job, complain about the church, complain about the pastor, complain about a lot of things. And I understand, you know, if you're being Jezebeled by someone who's, you know, lying about you, cheating, stealing, gossiping, being mean to you, then normally you want to tell that. But it's interesting, when I went through my, I don't know what you call it, I guess understanding things deeper in the spiritual realm and having to live it out. I was in a relationship with a person that was very much striving all the time over everything. They would get hit by the thoughts from demonic spirits in their mind, and then they would trigger and go off on me. And they would do that for, turned out to be 6 years. Couldn't tell anybody about it, had to keep quiet. The Lord told me. I couldn't even tell the guy that was my mentor about it. The Lord said, I don't want you to tell anybody. You're going to be essentially coming into a ministry later after this time, and I didn't know how long that it would take, but it took a lot longer than I thought. But I learned a lot from that. I learned how demons can affect a person, and then you could love a person like Christ loved the church. You could love them and be just like Jesus to that person. But if that person's got demonic spirits, they're going to trigger still and go off on you. You could love them, and normally you'd have to go to the point where you bite your tongue, and then they'll get mad over this, they'll get mad over that, they'll trigger over this, trigger over that, and it wears on a person. After it had been several years, and there's no signs of improvement. And the biggest thing was pride. When a person's got a lot of pride, then it's not fun being around them, because then they think everything is you, and they completely don't get it. They don't understand demonic spirits and taking ownership for themselves. So essentially, striving is anything that causes you to lose peace. And if you're striving over a lot of things, it could be money, could be people, could be fear and worry, could be your own physical body, complaining about this, complaining about that, complaining about food, lamenting about the people who hurt you. If you continue to complain about them over and over and over again, what happens is the people that are closest to you oftentimes want to pull away. They're like, I'm tired of this, tired of listening to this. So I'm going to drill down on some of these, because so many people in the church strive, argue, lament, woe is me, act like they're a victim over and over and over again. When you are healed and you're delivered, you don't strive anymore. It's ridiculous for a servant of the Lord to strive. 2 Timothy 2:23-24. So one of the things that a lot of people strive over is they're hearing demonic thoughts in their head, and those demons will give them thoughts that cause them to have fear, to have worry, anxiety. Again, if you listen to demonic thoughts in your head and you don't dismiss it and take the thought captive, like it says in 2 Corinthians 10:3-6, then you will be taken captive by all those negative thoughts. And if you speak it out, you know what? The enemy's telling me this, the enemy's telling me that. I mean, it's one thing, I guess, if you can discern that it's the enemy. If you know it's the enemy, then stop it. Do not let it speak out anymore. Tell it to silence its voice to you. Take that thought captive. Of course, pursuing inner healing and deliverance gets rid of a lot of that chatter, which is really necessary. But it's a whole nother thing if you don't know what you're hearing is coming from the enemy, and then you just speak your mind. And I hear that oftentimes. People say, I just speak my mind. Like, you just get out of my way. I'm going to speak my mind. And they got a lot of pride, a lot of arrogancy. Not fun to be around them. But ultimately, they'll have a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. If I listened to a demonic thought every day, especially lots of times, like thousands of times a day, like the National Science Foundation did a study in 2005 and found that people could have up to 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day, of which 80% are negative, 95% the same thoughts they had the day before. That's all demonic. You're not going to have peace if you let those demonic spirits speak to you. But what's interesting about fear and worry, which a lot of times that's what the demons want you to do, is to worry about your whatever. You can worry about your parents, worry about your relationships, worry about your children. If you worry, even for one sentence, if you listen to one sentence from the demonic spirit, you're not going to have peace. You're not going to have joy. You're not going to enjoy yourself. You're going to be stressing. And what can you do about it? You can shut the enemy's voice down so you don't hear it anymore. That would help. So interestingly, there was a study done in 2005. This is by Leahy, Leahy, HY study of Cornell University, which scientists found that firstly, 85% of what we worry about never happens. 85%. That's a lot. So why worry about anything? If what you're worrying about, 85% never happens. And secondly, with the 15% of the worries that did happen, they found that 79% of the subjects discovered that either they could handle the difficulty better than expected or that the difficulty taught them a lesson worth learning. So the conclusion of that study was that 97% of a person's worries are baseless. It says, and result from an unfounded pessimistic perception. Well, it's demonic. So don't worry, be happy. That's crazy. So I started practicing this. I got delivered, I always tell people, I got delivered in fall of 2008. But still, I heard the thoughts coming from the enemy for about a year and a half. Of course, I was married to someone that was hit by the enemy all the time, demonic spirits. Oh my gosh. I mean, not a day went by that the person got affected multiple times a day, and they would get triggered. So I got real life examples, and oftentimes experience is the best teacher. So, but I had to take my thoughts captive. The Lord said, why are you listening to a demonic spirit speak to you? Why are you giving them airtime? Why are you listening to a couple of sentences? It's ridiculous. Shut it down. And so I would take the thought captive. Again, I wouldn't share this with anyone. I didn't share it with my mentor, who was teaching me deep spiritual things. But he would not let me strive, complain about what I was going through. It wasn't until like 4.5 years into the relationship he finally did a one-on-one session with me and said, hey, what, can you share? How have things been? And I finally was able to share the truth. And he's like, oh my gosh. He goes, that means you're going to be extremely, 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 extremely anointed because of the extreme, abuse and suffering. And I'm like, well, good. That's good to know. Is I'm going to get something out of this because it sure hasn't been fun. The last 4.5 years has been hell. And so I could actually share. But up to that point, I couldn't share with anybody, not one person. And then if people asked me how are things going, I lied. Oh, things are great. And they weren't. But there's a lot of people that if you ask them how are things going, and they'll share the truth, there's a lot of pain, a lot of wounds that they have that they'll go on and on and on and on and on for a long, long, long time. And you're like, oh my gosh, I think they're still wounded. They're still hurting from that. So you think about that. The conclusion of that study, 2005 study of Cornell University, found that 97% of our worries are baseless. So the enemy is going to give you those thoughts from him about how bad things are gonna be. And yet 97% of what you're told is a total waste of your time. So if only 3% of what you're hearing has a negative impact that was devastating, then why worry? Why worry? So I got to the point where I took the thoughts captive. I mean, and one example was that I remember very clearly was when I had a bulge the size of a golf ball in my spine that was protruding. And I remember my stepson hugged me once and he could feel it. He's like, ooh, what was that? I'm like, nothing. He's like, no, it's something. It's a bulge coming out of your spine. I'm like, well, I just joked about it. I said, I guess I'm turning into a stegosaurus, but I didn't want him to know about it. Didn't want his mom to know about it, my ex-wife, because I knew that she didn't have the faith to believe for it. She would have gotten into fear, said, hey, you need to go to the doctor, da-da-da-da-da. And so the enemy, during that, it took 6 weeks before it got healed and dissolved away to nothing. But during that 6 weeks, the enemy kept trying to tell me, and I wouldn't let him speak more than 3 words, so I never heard, but I knew he was trying to tell me that it was cancer, that it was a tumor, that it was a cyst. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to listen to you. So I took the thoughts captive. I redirected my thoughts on something else. Because I knew that if I let that sentence get spelled out, I would have gotten into fear and worry. But I didn't. I had to take the thought captive. I had to then think about some things that were, you think about this: true, noble, just, good. So oftentimes I would think about, could be sports, could be, just get my mind off of it, basically. Sometimes I would pray in tongues, then you can't hear the enemy. but I put it into practice myself. Otherwise, I'd be striving, I'd be worrying, I'd be in fear. So there's a lot of people that they strive about everything. And is it fun being around them? No, it wears you down, it wears you out, and it wastes time. You know, and you're on the enemy's territory. If you're speaking out all these negative things that might happen, well, I'm thinking I'm going to do this. There's so many people that are double-minded, I could say triple-minded. They're like, well, gee, I think I'm going to do this. I think I should do this. What should I do? And they ask you, and you give them your opinion, and then they're still challenged, and they don't know what to do. So, fear and worry is a huge time waster, and it's striving. So, stop worrying, period. Get delivered. Inner healing and deliverance will take care of a lot of that. All right, next. Striving is when you get angry at your spouse or kids or parents or anybody else, and you say words that will hurt them and ruin all peace and intimacy. So the enemy wants you to get triggered and go off on people, take an offense, and speak your mind. I'm just going to speak my mind. You know what? It's not fun being around people that are like that. And those people, I'll just speak it out, are not spiritually mature whatsoever. And there could be people that are in the church, people that would call themselves a prophet. They could call themselves a, whatever, pastor. They're a evangelist. There's a revivalist. They're whatever. But they're not spiritually mature. Because what does it say? 2 Timothy 2:23 through 26, I'm going to read. But avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. So bite your tongue. Don't speak it out. Don't strive with anybody. I understand if people have demons, they're going to strive with you. They can't help themselves. They're spiritually immature. There's a lot of people in the church that are that way. And they could be prophetic. They could pray in tongues. And they could be hearing demons at the same time. Most of them are. It says, but avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. And a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, which is striving, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient, in humility, correcting those who are in opposition, if God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, that they may come to their senses, and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. I love those verses, because I've seen it. I remember, I had a stepson once, and he would strive about everything. And initially, I would try to speak the truth to him, but it would cause more division. He would get an offense, he would take an offense, get angry, and want to act like he knew everything. And so there's a lot of people that are religious that want to think that they know the best. And if you try to engage with them, to share the truth with them, they'll take an offense and they'll get mad and they'll go into being angry with you. Well, then at that point, if you're spiritually more mature and you're continuing the argument and striving with them, the Lord's not happy with what you're doing. You need to stop it. Do not allow that to go on and on into an argument. They're not there yet. They don't get it yet. They don't understand yet. So again, there can be people that are very prideful, very arrogant, that are in the church that want to think they know everything. And if you end up speaking the truth to them and they're not ready to receive it, you're going to have an argument on your hands. And again, it says, avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. Jesus knew the hearts of the Pharisees and the scribes. They would oftentimes come after him to engage in him in these senseless arguments. He would talk to them about it. Hey, there goes some geese landing in the water. So he would engage for a time, but then he'd get away, because it was a waste of his time. So the enemy, these demonic spirits in people, want you. They want to push you and push you and push you to get you into strife. Again, one of the things that the Jezebel spirit does in people is to cause them to want to create strife. And they want to push you and push you to get you mad. And then you end up rising up and saying things you don't really want to say, but you get exhausted. I get that. I understand that. I remember times where my ex-wife would go on and on and on for hours, And I'd be just trying to bite my tongue, but it was like Satan himself would be speaking through her, speaking things that were really evil and hurtful. And it was really hard to bite your tongue. And there's times that I, finally stood up and said, enough, stop it, quit it. And then they would torment more because they got a reaction. So it's hard. But those that are the spiritually mature will not get into an argument. What do? In fact, I remember after you have an argument, essentially, all those words that were spoken will come back into your head. Those demonic spirits will remind you of what they said and or what you said. And those that are the Jezebel spirit will provoke you to get angry, and then they'll laugh. Ha ha ha, look at you. You, all these evil things, you're an evil person. And they would start blaming you. And you're like, well, I wouldn't do that if you wouldn't have continued on for 15 straight minutes, or an hour, or 2 hours. So just don't do it. Just don't do it. I remember my mentor said, get out of Dodge. Nelson, get out of Dodge. I'm like, well, I can't get out of Dodge. She'll chase me. Run down the street. Jump behind my car so I can't back up. Crazy things. I went through a lot. It was crazy. And, but it was real. It was real. And there's demonic people that will do that to you. They'll behave crazy because they feel in their emotions, which is part of their soul. Their soul was wounded when they grew up. They're not delivered from their demons yet, so they get triggered, oftentimes over nothing. Their mind has been so fried from all the demonic thoughts and or words that they were cursed by their parents or a parent or sexual violations that happened to them. So their mind, their will, their free will, they can't stop themselves from triggering. And then their emotions, they become a different person, an alternate personality. So demons want you to take an offense over everything and then have arguments and strife. Demons want you to be jealous over nothing. Oftentimes demons, they'll cause people to be super duper jealous over nothing when the person essentially didn't do anything on purpose to cause that person to be jealous, but that person gets that way, and they are, and it feels really real to them, and they can't stop themselves, and they'll go on and on. Demons will cause you to say things to cause your spouse to be hurt and push away from you. So many people will self-sabotage their own relationships. Why? Because they get triggered. Yeah, rejection is a big one. Tina Marie Kirkpatrick, it's true. If you've been rejected and you've not gotten that wound healed from your past, if your spouse pushes away from you because you're arguing, then guess what? You'll feel more rejection. So you caused it, though. It's who is responsible for causing it. It's people that have not been healed yet, have not been healed from their wounds, still have demonic spirits. They're responsible. Think about Saul. Saul caused David to pull away. David had to get away because David wanted to live and not die and have a spear thrown through him and kill him. So many people self-sabotage their own relationships. Now, they can't help themselves. They get triggered. They go off on a person. They feel rejected. They feel jealous. And then they speak their minds. Or, conversely, you don't have to speak. You can just not say anything. I understand there's sometimes people do that on purpose to try to control. Other times people just need healing so that they can communicate and feel safe to communicate. Again, if you're in a relationship with a person that's got Jezebel, then the Jezebel person's going to go off on you if you try to communicate with them. So you can't really even share your true feelings. So they shut you down. All right, so demons cause people to speak out of their own pain and wounds that have not been healed, and those harsh words hurt those they speak to. And once they are spoken, they cannot take those words back. So the demons keep reminding the person who has had harsh words spoken to them over and over and over again. And they hear it over and over. And then that causes them to think things that are not true about their spouse. Oftentimes can cause separation, cause division that's not really necessary, if they just didn't hear the demonic thoughts in their head. Did you know this? This is something that it's interesting. I've had some experience myself in this. Did you know, again, demons want to cause you to take an offense, get angry, be jealous, have fear, anxiety, trigger, go off on people, not be calm. And they want you to speak your mind. But did you know that if you're able to keep your mouth quiet, not speak a word, not contend, not strive, that most of what you are striving over today, within 24 hours, you'll forget about it. It'll be nothing. Did you know that? You can cut down on 90% of your strife if you just don't speak it out. Most people can't do that though. Most people that have demonic spirits, they're gonna trigger. They're gonna go off because they're hearing demonic spirits saying, don't you trust them? Don't you let them share this or that? That's not true. They're liars. You can't trust them, blah, 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 blah. And then we go off on them. So if you choose to hold your tongue and not say anything to the other person, which will almost always result in strife, then guess what? It will become nothing overnight. And then you wake up the next day, hey, you might have even forgotten about it. But then something else will come up that day. So what most people do is they strive. They fight, they argue, they take an offense. It's because their soul wounds were not healed yet. So they're hearing demonic spirits loudly in their thoughts. It will trigger them. But how many times, I don't know how many, there's a ton. I had a lot of practice on this, put it this way. And I had some people that they were not in the right space, what they were doing, and everything in me wanted to speak out and say, what are you doing? This is crazy, this is nuts. And oftentimes it cost me thousands of dollars by the mistakes that they would make. But the Lord said they're hurt, they're wounded. You know, and they can't take it if you were to speak even the truth in love to them. So if you say anything, it's going to be strife. So you need to just bite your tongue and take it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, God, nobody would do this. They would think, you know, it cost me tens of thousands of dollars. Lots of money. So, but God said it's more important to have a relationship and that you are stronger spiritually than what they are. They've been hurt and wounded. They still have demonic spirits. So take it like Jesus did. I'm like, this is so hard. I don't want to just take it. All right, other things that people strive over. Again, I'll reiterate that. Try to practice today not saying something to someone that would normally irritate your demons or irritate you or trigger you. Just don't say it. Bite your tongue and watch what happens. 24 hours later, you'll probably forget about even wanting to strive about it or say anything. You're like, oh my gosh, I guess that was nothing really. Yeah, most things, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would guess to think probably 85% of what people strive about. You don't have to. You shouldn't. Just let it go. Let it go. Give it to the Lord. You know, people can also strive over religious things like God. Strive over reading your Bible, praying in tongues, fasting, worshiping. You know, I saw a lot of people that would just strive. Like, oh my gosh, I got to pray in tongues for 30 minutes. I've got to fast for 2 days. I've got to do this. And they would strive over it. You know, it would make it into a religious thing, make people know about it. You know, worship so that people can see them worshiping out in front. So, anyways, striving over money. You know, you're not going to have enough to pay for your bills. But if you speak life and you stay in peace, oftentimes you will have enough. You know, especially if you're aligned with the Lord, living a godly lifestyle. You know, I get it if you're out there choosing to sin as much as you can get away with, sexually sinning, being impure, ungodly, then the Lord can't protect you. But let's say that you are in line with the Lord. There may be a season where the Lord humbles you, takes away all your money. You have to rely on Him. You know, I had to go through that season. That wasn't fun when I used to have about $500,000, but it humbled me. I needed to go through that. And so now, if there's a bill that comes up I'm not expecting, I don't get into fear. I speak life and trust the Lord to provide. You know, condemning people and criticizing people That causes strife. I hear somebody mowing the grass. Condemning and criticizing people. A lot of times, those demons want you to do that. They get you into strife. They want you to strive over exercising, working out all the time, taking copious amounts of vitamins, putting on whatever, trying to dress up and make yourself look, I don't know, sexual. That's all a part of the enemy. Focusing always on your exterior and not on the interior, not in your heart. The Lord looks upon your heart and your mind. I posted that today. And fruit of the Spirit. He's not impressed by your works. He's not impressed by your gifts. And there's a lot of people that will be praying in tongues, prophesying, calling themselves a Christian that are not on their way to heaven right now. And if they don't repent, if they don't forgive, if they don't humble themselves before the Lord, and before they die, then most of them won't be going to heaven, unfortunately. God's not impressed by our works. He's not impressed by our thoughts. So, amen. Amen. All right. And, Matthew 7:21-23. Lord, Lord, look at all I've done for you. I've cast out demons in your name. I've prophesied in your name. Done many wonders in your name. The Lord doesn't care. He said, you're not getting into heaven because of the struggling with sin, choosing to sin, lawlessness. Okay, other things that you can strive over is when you lament, complain about what people did to hurt you over and over and over every day. It means you're not healed yet from those wounds. You're not delivered yet. So how do you stop striving? You stop striving by getting your wounds healed, asking Jesus to show you about what those people did to hurt you from his perspective. And God will always tell you that they were also hurt. They were wounded. And hurting people hurt you because they have demons. And then you command the demons to go. Once you've been healed, once you've chosen to forgive people, once you've repented for your pride, repented for your own sin. So I wrote a book called Keep Your Peace On. And it took it 4 days to write it. Those of you that know me know I don't like to write. But of course I have to at times. So I wrote a book. I started on a Friday. I guess I was done on a Monday. And it was available on Amazon by the following Friday. So it's called Keep Your Peace On. And I choose to live it out every day. I live in peace, not strife. I understand sometimes you have to have a discussion with someone that may not be pleasant. If the person takes an offense over everything, it's not going to probably go peacefully. They'll be offended, or they'll strive with you about it. But there's times that you have to, just like Jesus had to address things with people. But don't go looking for a fight. Don't take an offense, get angry, have a tone, or not talk. You need to talk it through. Now I understand if you're talking with a person that's not healthy, then that can lead to strife. But if you've had situations in the past where people strove with you, fought and argued, couldn't get a word in edgewise, then normally you've been wounded and you don't trust opening up to other people. If the person's healthy, then you can share. If they're not, then you probably can't. So anyway, it's a good book. Keep Your Peace On. It's available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. So again, this weekend I am going to Northeast Iowa. So come on out Saturday night, 7 p.m. at Fort Atkinson, Iowa, in One Accord. They actually meet at a barn. It's a really cool venue. And then on August 1st, Sunday morning, I'll be in Decorah, Iowa at their church service church is called Christian Life Center. And then August 7th, next weekend, I'll be in Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Marriott West. Alrighty, well, it's not too bad right now, actually. It's humid, not much of a breeze like it was yesterday. But they're expecting a 107-degree heat index here in Iowa. So if I go out and run this afternoon, I will sweat a lot. Alrighty, I will let you guys go, and we'll see ya on Facebook and YouTube. Alrighty,